Hello, it's Lee Cassidy, joining you again for our final keynote speech of the day, where we've got Ross Cooper-Smith talking to us about the values of private cloud. So, how are you doing, Ross?
I'm doing well, thanks, Lee.
All right, so over to you. Are you using some slides for this?
I am indeed.
So if
I'm
you
going
can
to share a screen,
and then I can put them on the screen for you.
That should be available now.
There you are, and I shall leave you to it.
Lovely. I'm going to keep the comments open on screen if there's any questions, but if I'm busy talking, it might take me a minute to notice, so please bear with me. If you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat at any time. And as Lee said, my name is Ross Cooper-Smith. I'm one of the principal engineers here at Tintri, and here to talk today really on a couple of topics. What is enterprise cloud, and really what's the value of enterprise private cloud? And I'm going to start with just that definition of what do I mean when I'm talking about enterprise private cloud. What specifically am I talking about? And really, for me, there's a few pillars of what you're looking for in a cloud. It's that pooling of resource, that ability to have really just this cloud of resource where you can throw workloads at without needing to heavily configure or tune any of that ahead of time. That ability to automate. One of the big strengths of cloud is agility around software development, scaling. If you don't have automation capabilities, you're really not getting those benefits. That elasticity, that ability to kind of flex and change with demand, and that ability to monitor, bill by the hour, rent resources, see exactly what's going on at any point in time. And then that self-service. This for many years was actually one of the pains of public cloud, was development teams going and departments provisioning workloads themselves in the cloud, creating this whole kind of shadow IT issue. But regardless of which you're really focusing on, regardless of the benefits that you're specifically needing for your business, typically you're going to be using that enterprise cloud to either bring cloud applications on site or to deliver classic enterprise or in-house applications in a more flexible way. And what we normally see in enterprise is actually there's going to be a mix of different models being used to serve these. Public cloud and service provider cloud are very, very common these days. They're well known. On-premise cloud it's a popular concept. It tends to be the bigger enterprises that are delivering true on-premise cloud because they've got the teams to build it. We do find the main market, the mass market, struggles to deliver a real cloud. And across all of these, the key theme really for all of this is just agility. It's having the business wants the flexibility on the billing, on the delivery, on the performance, so that they don't need to worry about IT ahead of time. You're giving the business the agility to react to its market and to the business needs, and to the organization's needs, with the confidence that your infrastructure can keep up. And this really is one of the core elements of cloud. It's that ability to start small, to dip your toe in the water without a big risk. And that's both business risk and kind of CapEx investment and commercial risk. It's that ability to spin up and tear down workloads. It's fail fast, that ability to scale. The challenge, of course, in the enterprise is not every workload is a good fit for public cloud. There are many, many cases where cloud is found to be much higher cost. At the end of the day, with cloud systems, you are renting a resource instead of owning it. If you look at the costs over time, it's very, very common to find that public cloud will cost 4 to 5 times that of running private cloud infrastructure. And that's including all of the overheads for management, power, calling, all those facilities and resources. There's also challenges around performance. There's a number of applications where we will very often see them maintained in-house rather than going to the cloud. Production and manufacturing is obviously very, very key. They can't afford downtime. They can't afford to have loss of connectivity to the cloud, whether that's down to an internet connection, whether that's down to a cloud outage, which we do see. We've actually helped some customers decloud. We've had customers where their databases, one example, SQL servers in the cloud, the public cloud offerings from major providers could not keep up with the demands of the business as they grew. And the famous example of this, of course, is Netflix. They were the poster child for Amazon for many, many years. they found as time went on, as the business scaled, the public cloud resources couldn't keep up with the performance they needed, and the costs were skyrocketing out of control. NASA, again, a really good example of this. They moved a big piece of storage to the cloud to essentially lower their costs of running in the cloud. Bear with me, I'm getting a dog delivered behind me. So yes, they were having to run workloads in the cloud, and they moved it all out. They had missed the fact that the cloud charged for access. And this was a research workload. So what happened is that every time now researchers across the globe are accessing this data set, NASA get the bill. That was an unexpected $20 million hit to their budget a few years ago. So there's a lot of challenges around which workloads are good for cloud, and this is where you need to consider private cloud as well as public cloud. And private cloud, this can be something in your own data center. More often these days, it's something that's actually living and working in a colo data center. So again, you're removing those costs and overheads of managing physical security, power, calling, resilience. Somebody else is taking care of that. And that's a very, very common deployment scenario these days for private cloud, is you will actually be configuring the cloud yourself, you're owning the infrastructure, but it's physically in a colo data center, it's out of the business. And 2020 again accelerated that. With more and more businesses working remotely and realizing they can work remotely and staff can work remotely, they've realized, well, we don't need our core IT in our own data center. We can actually, we've looked at the costs. It's actually cheaper for us to run and own our own infrastructure, but we're going to put it in a colo data center instead. And this is where Tintri really comes in, because what we deliver with VMstore is the agility and flexibility and ease of use of a public cloud, but within your own data center. So if you've got workloads that are highly secure, or you're contractually not allowed to put them in a public cloud, or you need high performance, more performance the cloud can offer, there's a lot of scenarios where if you do have legacy workloads or applications that you can't put in a public cloud, this is a really, really good alternative. And when you start to compare Tintri with public cloud, if you look at how agility is delivered with a cloud service, it's building blocks. And the building block these days is commonly virtual machines. It's trending slightly towards containers, but the vast majority of enterprise workloads today are running on virtual machines. With Tintri, we have the exact same architecture. It's a platform that natively scales VM at a time, a database at a time, container at a time. The other major thing is automation, that ability to remove some of the overheads of managing infrastructure and platforms yourselves. This is really something that Tintri have specialized in for more than a decade. Tintri really are synonymous with intelligent infrastructure. And if you go online and have a look at stories from our customers and the client base, there are many, many success stories and a lot of really good quotes around what we're able to deliver in this way. Analytics, it's having that cloud console, that dashboard, showing you what's going on and giving you that confidence that you've got the performance to scale. You've got that ability to roll out additional workloads, and it's not going to have a negative impact on the business. So one of the real strengths of Tintri is that we give you these analytics that cover both the compute and the storage elements. So, and you can use the planning tool to view how your workloads have changed over the last 3 years, how they're predicted to change over the next 18 months. It takes into account seasonal variations. So for example, some of our customers that run online gaming or commercial services, it's very common for them to see spikes in workloads, seasonal demand, Black Friday, Christmas, New Year, holidays. And the planning tools will actually show you that for next year's workload. It will show you what those patterns are expected to be next year. And when you've got projects coming up, you want to deploy more workload, you can use the planning tool to actually build that out and say, right, we need to roll out, or the business needs to roll out another 500 VDI users. We're acquiring another company. We need to extend our database. We need to scale the website. If I plan that change, can I guarantee that I have got enough headroom, enough performance, enough capacity to accommodate that without any challenges whatsoever? So very, very powerful planning tools. Takes all of the guesswork out of sizing. And this is one of the other areas where this, again, starts to become more like managing a cloud than managing infrastructure. Because traditionally, if you're planning infrastructure investment in enterprise, you're planning 5-year cycles. You're planning for investment 5 years at a time. You're essentially putting IT administrators and CEOs and CIOs in the position of trying to guess 5 years ahead of time what the market is going to look like for the business, what the business is going to need. That's an impossible question to answer. No business knows exactly what their business is going to look like in 5 years' time, the scale, the size, what the market looks like. You just don't know this ahead of time. So having to invest large chunks of capital buying infrastructure to meet an unknown requirement is an expensive proposition. And classic IT has only given you that option for many, many years. You buy ahead of time, you buy what you think you need for 5 years. It will be 2 to 3 years before you're even using half of that resource in most cases. So having planning tools that let you see exactly how much resource you need and let you see exactly how much resource you're going to need in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months time allows you to be much more intelligent with investments. It makes it much more of a controlled, gradual investment. It's allowing you to move from that big 5-year CapEx cycle into a much more controlled way of working. And for the business, for the bottom line, it means better cash flow. There's real benefits to the business if you can deliver this as an IT team. One of the other key tenets of cloud is automation. It's that ability to streamline and process tasks. One of the real strengths of Tintri is that when you are deploying a cloud solution using Tintri, the compute, the storage is all working the same way. You're managing virtual machines, databases, containers. You're not having to translate this into LUNs and shares and subnets and fiber channel. You're not having to translate any of this into storage technology terms. You simply, if you need a VM, you create a VM. The storage piece is taken care of automatically. And it means that tasks that can be automated on traditional infrastructure, but are very, very complicated because you're having to automate all these different layers, all these different topics, now become much, much simpler to automate. If you're trying to automate the creation of a VM, you just create the VM. If you're trying to automate delivering more performance for a virtual machine, well, you just change the performance settings. We have cloud providers using Tintri to automate their services and actually deliver the self-service portal for their clients. One example of that, Green Cloud in the USA, they have different tiers of performance. You can basically buy a cloud virtual machine with different levels of performance on the compute level, different levels of performance on the storage level. And you can go to a self-service portal and you can upgrade or downgrade on demand. And it's instant. And that's all powered by our API on the back end. And that kind of API and flexibility allows you to deliver self-service, whether that's within the business, whether this is automating tools for development teams. Another good example of where the self-service is being used is Dropbox. They're using our VMstore platform for software development. They've used the API and the capabilities so that the developers, at the click of a button, can spin up a brand new copy of the live infrastructure, and they can run all of their testing in their own private sandbox. They've not needed to buy more hardware for this. The clones happen effectively instantly. All of these clone workloads are for development, so the performance is isolated from everything else on the platform. They're cycling about 1,000 virtual machines every 15 minutes. Had a massive impact on productivity and workflow within that team. And that's really the essence for me of a private cloud. Private cloud is all about having the flexibility of a cloud, eliminating the complexities of managing hardware. What you don't want is that cloud to be hard to manage, hard to set up, to be as time-consuming as the processes it's replacing. It's got to be simple. It's got to be easy to use. And I'm sure some of you are thinking now, kind of, what's the catch? if it's got all these capabilities, this has got to be complex to deploy or tricky to manage. In reality, it's very, very simple. A lot of this comes from the roots of VMstore. In the early days, this was actually developed by the former VP of engineering at VMware themselves. And the architecture essentially is that on the compute side, clouds are built on virtualization. If you're looking at public clouds from Amazon, it's built on KVM. If you're looking at Microsoft, well, obviously it's built on Hyper-V. A lot of private clouds for enterprise, a lot of independent cloud providers actually use VMware because most of their enterprise clients run VMware. So offering a private cloud service with VMware makes it much easier for workloads to be moved in and out of the cloud and to have a seamless experience. So you're really looking at one of the mainstream hypervisors. And what are those hypervisors doing? Well, they're abstracting away all the hardware so that the virtual machines can just run on a hypervisor host, and you don't need to think about hardware anymore. That's true of private enterprise. That's true of all the virtualization out there, and it's true of clouds. What we do on the storage side is exactly the same. We abstract away all of the storage management tasks. You don't need to think about RAID or storage or LUNs or shares. You just have virtual machines that are stored on the VMstore device. We've abstracted away all of that complexity so that all you need to think about as a management team, as a systems team, are the virtual machines, the workloads that you're hosting. And again, day-to-day on the management. The management of this is designed to work hand in hand with the management of the virtual machines. We do have TGC, which is the single pane of glass. That can manage up to 64 VM stores in each cluster. They're a scale-out clustered solution. But day to day, actually, if you're a VMware estate, you'll be living in the vSphere console. If you're Hyper-V, you'll be managing Hyper-V. The way Tintri Global Center works is that it's designed to set policies rather than leave you managing things one at a time. So you might, for example, set a policy that says, right, for SQL Server, it's business critical. We need snapshots taking every 15 minutes. We need to keep those on a grandfather, father, son schedule. We need those replicating to another site. Once you've set that policy, as soon as you roll out a new SQL workload, as soon as you create that virtual machine in vCenter, the policy is applied automatically. The snapshots are taken automatically. It's replicated. You've not needed to do anything. And that eliminates a lot of the overheads from managing and provisioning new workloads. It eliminates mistakes. It helps give you the confidence the business is protected. And certainly snapshots these days are critical. One of the big threats to businesses now is ransomware and encryption viruses. Since early 2020, we've seen ransomware targeting backup servers. If you have an enterprise storage solution, you absolutely have to be using storage snapshots because that gives you an extra layer of defense. Storage snapshots are out of the data path. Ransomware can't modify them. The beauty of snapshots is that they can be restored effectively instantly. You don't have to move the data. A good storage array doesn't move the data to restore from a snapshot. So you've got the benefits in terms of data integrity that you get with tape or offsite backup, but you get that rapid recovery time that you get from on-site storage. Of course, one of the uniques of VMstore is that all of that protection is happening at the VM level. And this is, again, the big difference that makes this more like a cloud. If you're going to Amazon or Azure and you're buying a virtual machine, one of the options is, do you want this protected? Do you want this running in another availability zone? Do you want your data protected? You get exactly those capabilities with VMstore. You can choose that as you create the VM. You can set a policy so that's happening automatically. So all of those capabilities are there built in. And then you've got the single pane of glass over the top, managing all of it and giving you that strategic overview. So the architecture, very, very simple. The architecture of the storage is exactly the architecture you're already running today on your compute. It's all using Ethernet. It's all using standard technologies. And if you're running Hyper-V or VMware today, there's no change there. It just works. If you want more proof of this, I would say go onto YouTube, go and search for the Tintri Pizza Challenge introduction. This is actually many years old, but it's as relevant today as it was then. We challenged one of our customers to try to get a pizza delivered to site before a brand new array was up, running, and hosting virtual machines. this again is something that with traditional infrastructure, you're talking days of planning and effort to deploy and roll out and scale. You don't get that flexibility to scale with the speed that a cloud can scale because it's such a complex process. If you make that process easier, you get a lot more flexibility into the business. And some of the real proof points of this are just looking at some of the quotes over the years from Tintri customers. And we genuinely have hundreds and hundreds of these. If you look on the website, there are loads. There's a lot of happy customers out there. We've got a wonderful quote from Sega. The public cloud at Sega, the gaming cloud, is now running on VMstore. They were having challenges where games and applications would suddenly spike in requirements, and they couldn't react quickly enough. They had a problem that they called monster VMs. This is essentially the noisy neighbor or contention problem, one of the classic challenges around virtualization or cloud, and they couldn't solve it. VMstore solved it instantly. It's core to our architecture. We automatically solve contention. We don't allow contention to happen. That's out of scope really for today, but if you do want to know more about that, drop us a line and we can go into the architecture and how that works. But I think the quote from Sega says it all. The auto quality of service, overwhelmingly effective. We basically solved the problem instantly. Another quote from one of my accountants, Darren Henderson at Southern Health and Social Care Trust, major NHS trust in Southern Ireland. They've got an award-winning VDI deployment, 2,500 users. And Darren says, it can't be this easy. It really is. They rolled out the arrays. They've never needed to touch them, tune them, play with them. They just work. So I said, I'm not going to go into the details too much, but I do want to go under the covers just a tiny, tiny bit on just why VMstore is so different and how it does this. So just bear with me 1 second, because I am going to just bring up a slightly different deck and a slightly different talk track now. And just very quickly, in the last couple of minutes, just going to look, what is it that VMstore does? Why is it that this is so different and so well suited to actually a cloud? And what's the value from that? And fundamentally, clouds are based on virtualization. The biggest challenge virtualization has is that it doesn't manage access to the storage. The storage is a free-for-all. It doesn't matter whether it's KVM, Hyper-V, VMware, they're all the same. The virtual machines will compete for access to storage, and storage can very easily be a bottleneck for your applications. And that problem is where VMstore first came to be, more than 10 years ago. This was a big problem that VMware were well aware of. There's a gentleman called Kieran Harty. He was employee number 14 at VMware. He was their executive vice president of engineering for 7 years. He was so frustrated with the problem, he set out to solve it. And VMstore, in essence, is a storage array that takes everything VMware learned about how to solve this problem for compute and applied it to storage. So every workload gets its own lane of traffic. Every virtual machine is isolated. We eliminate contention. You have monitoring in real time for every virtual machine. Again, you don't get this with classic enterprise storage. You can't see what's going on in real time. You can't troubleshoot at the VM level. A good cloud provider will give you this. Very, very few enterprise solutions will. Tintri has all of this included as standard. You can have that capacity planning. So you can see how your demand has changed over time. You can see how the business is growing. You've got full visibility of compute requirements, memory, storage capacity, storage performance, all of the core metrics that if you look at a cloud provider, this is how they bill you. They're going to bill you by how much compute do you use, how much memory, how much capacity, how much performance. The reason they bill on those metrics is because that's how we build a cloud. Fundamentally, you've got a number of resources, and these are the resources that you're consuming when you roll out virtual machines or databases or containers. Scaling on VMstore, very, very simple. If you need to add capacity, you add capacity. If you need performance, you add performance. You can mix and match to your heart's content. You can scale from an entry level of 2 or 3 terabytes of capacity up to 40 petabytes. So this really is cloud level scaling, and scaling is as simple as 5 minutes of plugging in a drive or 30 minutes and maybe a pizza to scale out and add another array. And just to summarize, the benefits of this are you're eliminating all the bottlenecks and overheads from managing and planning around making sure you don't get bottlenecks for the business. So it's reducing the impact for the business. It's helping things run more seamlessly. It's freeing up time. This is what cloud is all about. It's removing the requirement to manage infrastructure from your teams so that you can spend more time focusing on the business, on the applications, on delivering the things that really make a difference to the bottom line. It's giving you a true solution that really acts like an internal private cloud. And this is a very hot topic for the strategic goals of most enterprises, and it's giving you all the information around that. And for me, that flexibility is the true value of a private cloud. It's freeing up time. It's giving time back to IT teams who are managing estates that are more and more complicated every year. We're managing more applications. We're managing on-premise workloads, off-premise. We've got users working from home. We've got security challenges. You've got ransomware threats. IT teams have got more to manage than they ever had in the last 5-10 years. And all the signs are that's just going to keep getting more and more complex. We need to take some of the complexity away. And we have hundreds of customers all over the globe who have used Tintri to free time within their teams, to use that time to focus on the business needs, on business goals. We've got a lovely quote at the bottom here from Boingo Wireless. Tintri is the best employee I have. We freed up 2 full engineers worth of time within that business. And that was time that they were able to reinvest within IT to focus on projects that had a bigger business impact, focusing on those high-level tasks instead of focusing on keeping the lights on. So that is it from me. I hope you found that useful. If you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to add them in the comments now, and we'll be here for another couple of 3 minutes to answer any of those.
I've not seen anything pop up in the chat so far, so yeah, but we'll keep an eye on that. But I think one of the things to think about is the background behind people moving to cloud native is usually because they're trying to do something like digital transformation. To be able to do digital transformation, you've got to be able to deliver consistency as well. So it's consistency in the operation, consistency in the delivery of the service, and it's also consistency in the development of new applications and deployment of those. Because the move towards agility is so you can actually start delivering really quickly, rather than years ago when we would do a 6-month or a 12-month software release and patch updates between. Some organizations, I believe Netflix, do 17 upgrades a day. Releases of different parts of their software. It's a massive schedule they run to, continuing updating the software as they go forward. And that's what a lot of organizations are looking at, not 17 times a day, but getting something out within a week or a month, and gradually improving the features and functionality of what they're delivering, whether that's a banking application, whether that's an application to manage your gym membership, whether it's some kind of multimedia service, a streaming service, and you can see what watching your favorite actors and actresses on that. So the key thing is that delivery of service. And if you look at it from the end user's perspective, if you're not getting the delivery of service, you're not getting the performance, that you're getting like latency and it's slowing down things, that's when you can quite quickly vote with your feet and move somewhere else. So it's really important to any organization that's delivering digital transformation to ensure they give a good service. We're going to have to jump because we're both on the panel discussion that starts in about 1 minute. So thank you, everybody. And we shall catch you in around about, I think it's about 30 seconds. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks all. See you soon.